Hello and welcome to episode 5, I believe, of Coffee and Code. My name is Peter Fisher from the How to Code Well YouTube channel. Hope you're all well. Apologies for not being able to do a live stream last week. I've been suffering from a bit of man flu. As you could probably tell, I've got a bit of a cold. And I was actually in bed for a couple of days last week, just trying to shift this damn cold. Um, Also, as you've probably been aware, if you follow me on Twitter, which is at How to Code Well, as well as my Instagram account, I've also been suffering from a bit of back pain as well. So I've been seeing my chiropractor. So I couldn't really do anything that week. I was full of cold and I had a bit of a bad back. But luckily now, it's getting better, so I can talk without and sit here without much discomfort, which is great. So apologies for last week. Also, we had a trip up to Amsterdam, which was really cool, and I was doing some work on the actual plane. So when we were flying up to Amsterdam, on the website that I was doing last time. The website we were playing with last time was for the Docker in Motion course that I'm doing for Manning Publications, and the website, which I'll talk about later, is um, uh, it's basically a very simple set of form, or of a form, if you will, and a list page that will be connecting to the Docker database, a MySQL database in a Docker container, as well as a web server in a Docker container, linking those two bits together. That's what we're going to focus on in the code part of this, because I've done a lot of changes since then. I say a lot of changes. They look like there's been a lot of changes, but it actually didn't take me long to play with. Most of the work was done actually in the first live stream. Excuse me. So today I just want to wire some things up, but I want to talk about some bits and pieces that have happened in the news recently. Let me just go to. I just want to double check something. That's looking good. Um, I can't talk about web development without talking about the W3C. um, and I this is something that I've wanted to discuss for a while, but it's there's other people better than me who will be able to talk about it. Brian Lunduke, if you don't follow him on YouTube, then please do, because he's a fantastic journalist and someone who really cares about the community, Linux, and the web. And he did a fantastic piece on the W3C, so do check his stuff out. Essentially, what has happened is so I wasn't aware of this for a while, but the W3C has been trying to get together a standard for DRM, to allow DRM in the web as HTML. When I first saw that, I thought, I was a bit taken aback by that. That's a bit, what sort of, hang on a minute, what's all this about? DRM surely is the last thing you want in an open web, in the open web, because the web is supposed to be something that we can all use, right? We should all be able to use without having any kind of rights management, any kind of thing like that we have to adhere to. But no, we are apparently going to be standardizing having a standard, an API for DRM. If someone had said that to me, say 5-10 years ago, I would have just sort of went, no, 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 no. But it's now a very strong reality. But the weird thing isn't necessarily just that announcement. And they've been trying to push this for a while, right? They've been trying they've been talking about DRM. You have to have a conversation about it. You have to have an open dialogue about this thing. But it was also the way in which they went about doing it, right? So it was a very it just seems from the outside, and nobody has actually said anything from the inside, from W3C, that have seen. It just seems to be a little bit under the table So there was nobody has shown their public votes. So none of the votes, sorry, of supporting DRM been made public. None of the minutes of the meetings have been made public. Excuse me, and that is a little bit weird. That is a little bit weird, because when you have these kind of big committees that really do change the path of the web, one would hope that because it is as they have stated 100 times, should be completely open, and they go and do something like this, which isn't open. That is a bit peculiar, right, to say the least. Also, as an offshot, people like the EFF have resigned from the board. So I mean that should just show how big this thing is. This is quite a shocking thing, and I'm going to be playing with the API when it's available, because I mean I'm a web developer, so I'll play with whatever gets given to me on the plate in terms of the web. So when that becomes publicly available, in the sense that when it's stable and of everything, then I'll be playing with it. I'll probably be doing a bunch of tutorials on it, but I don't think I'm going to be feeling very clean doing it. But maybe this is all just drama. Maybe this is actually a good thing in a sort of a roundabout way. Maybe we do have to have a standard for this stuff. Time will tell. My gut is saying no, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't. I was a bit taken aback when this was approved. I teach. I don't know if anyone knows here. I've mentioned it on the YouTube channel, How to Code Well. I teach HTML. I actually go in to places and I teach HTML to classes of people, and we do I do a bunch of theory. So usually the course is about 3 hours long. We do an hour and a half of theory, which is me talking about HTML, the DOM, CSS, JavaScript, all of that stuff on a projector, and then the next sort of hour and a half is me instructing them in building websites. And part of my spiel when I talk about the HTML and the web is who standardizes that, who comes up with those kind of the rules, and so I talk about the W3C as an open organization that has these APIs, that has a goal of creating an open and standard web for everyone. And I don't know if I can say that now without feeling a little bit sort of, well, hang on a minute, it's an open and standard web, and yet we have a standard here for DRM. I think that's a bit, I don't know, it just seems a little bit very weird. And one can put the tin hat on and imagine in a few years' time that we are now, if we are allowing DRM in, then what else can we do? What else are we going to allow in? So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting few years ahead, I think, what this means, because obviously someone wants this in, right? Some big company wants this in. I don't know what the end game is. I don't know what the end game is. But anyway, let's not dwell on that too much. Excuse me, I've got my cough, and talking for lengths of periods isn't great, so I do apologize. I'm just glad that this is over a digital medium, so I'm not actually going to infect you lot from this cold. So, what have I been playing with? Well, I know I should have had a bit of rest, but I've actually been playing with a bit of Rust. So Rust is, Rustlang. It's like, I mean, I've just been playing with it just because I'm interested with the language. I chose to play with Rustlang instead of Golang because Rustlang isn't made by Google, and it was kind of that decision. I mean, I could have just used Golang. It was basically a flip of the coin, right? And there isn't anything in particular that I'm actually building with Rustlang. I have there's no application, there's no sort of like I need to build XYZ in Rustlang. Um, it is purely out of my own desire to understand the language more, um, and to broaden the horizons of just what I know. It's very easy to just go, okay, I do PHP 9 to 5, and therefore I'm just a PHP developer. So Rustlang I'm finding very nice. I'm one of these guys who sees a programming language and actually sees not just a bunch of logical statements, a logical flow, or in some cases an illogical flow if it's got bugs, but also just the beauty of it, right? I do think that there is an element of beauty with code. Um, you can express yourself in code quite well. And I was really taken aback by the way Rustlang deals with its operators and its if statements and so forth. It was quite liberating to play with Rustlang coming from PHP and Python. Um, uh, it just felt like because it was a sort of the syntax in some regards is quite simpler. That you had less street furniture, less syntax sugar to deal with, which was quite good. And it's good to have that. It's good to work on another language which is totally different from the language that you're fluent in, because you start to either excuse me, either appreciate the language that you should be working on in more detail, and also you can start getting a bit nitpicky, and you can start going, well, Rustlang does it in this way, so why can't I do this in this way, and all of that, and you start understanding the nuances of not only the language that you're trying to learn, Rustlang, but also the language that you know full well, and therefore you become more of a well-rounded developer. So there is no app that I'm building with Rustlang. I'm literally just sort of packing around and just playing with the compiler, playing with just basic control flows, really, and just sort of constantly comparing different languages and stuff, which is great. I mean, I really enjoy doing that. But it's one of those things. As soon as you have like a couple of days where you can't do any code, you start thinking, well, I could have a look at this. I've also been doing a bit of reading. I've been reading some bits and pieces around event sourcing. In fact, I don't have the book with me, but it's essentially a very big book about event sourcing, all written in C#. I will pull that out later if I can find it. I don't think I've got it in this room, in this office. But yeah, I mean, event sourcing is something that I've been sort of doing by accident. So it's always good to read someone else's experiences with that, which is good, just to keep yourself sort of working on the straight stuff. But anyway, that's basically what I'm going to say in terms of like the newsy stuff. I really should get that book, to be honest. I want to talk about the book as well as the author, but I don't, and I dare not put the author's name on the chat on the stream because just in case I get it wrong. So anyway, let's now talk about some code, okay? Because this is what we're here for, right? Coffee and code. So I've just got my coffee here, which is my Run PHP mug, which is pretty awesome. It's getting a bit cold now. And we're going to be looking at the application that I wrote a couple of weeks ago on livestream about the Docker in Motion course. Now, Docker in Motion, I will just plug this a little bit. Docker in Motion is my my course on Manning Publications. It's all about Docker, obviously. And so you can get it from, I'll put in the link here. And it's quite in depth, right? There's about there's 8, sorry, modules, and each module has a whole bunch of stuff in it. So we talk all the way through the introduction of Docker. So this is all about um, talking about the differences between containers and the virtual world, as well as uh, microservices. What is the Docker engine? How to create Docker images, so using Docker files and so forth. How to pull and push those Docker images to a Docker registry, how to manage and maintain containers. So Docker in Motion here, so Docker in Motion, I'm just putting this in the chat. You can get that from that link there. As well as talking about the database, storing data in a database, so the different volumes and stuff. And then Docker Compose. And now the idea is that on the sixth sort of unit, when we're talking about, or sixth module, when we're talking about databases, we're going to have a web server in a container, and a database in another container, and we're going to link them together and just build an application. And that application is going to be just a very simple list of entries of people, right? And this is something that we've been working on this Coffee and Code live stream here, um, and that's something that we're going to be playing with a bit more today. So I have this here, which is obviously a failed thing. So I'm just going to spin that up in the terminal. Bear with me a moment. Whoops, that's not right. Hold on, sorry. It's all gone a little bit strange. Bear with me a moment. Let's just get the right tabs. No, let's not load that up. No, let's not load that up. There we go. Sorry. So in the old terminal here, what we're going to do is spin this up as a very basic PHP local web server. So let's just double check where I am. Okay, so we need to go into the code. This is in a GitHub repository, and the link to that is in the course if you get that. So it's in sites and my site. So in the course, we talk about how to create a website for a Docker web server, an Apache 2 web server, and how we can copy that site to the container, and then how to run that in the web server. So okay, let's run that. So I'm just going to do PHP hyphen capital S to do the web server, put in local host, like so, host, and we're going to use port 8000 like that, and run that. That's looking good. And then what we do, let's just bring up another tab just to keep that running. In the actual in the browser here, let me refresh, and there we go. Right, so this is basically it, right? This is, let me just scale that down, make it a little bit more easier to read. Now last time it was pretty awful, in the sense of the UI. It looked really odd, because it had no CSS. The CSS is something that I threw together sort of after the live stream, I only spent like a couple of hours on it. It wasn't like a massive job to do, and I'm using Flexbox in order to make this responsive. So if I went to, I think if I go to responsive design mode here and went to here, you can see that it is responsive in the sense that it lists, it stacks things up. I think that's probably a better view here. And then when it goes past a certain pixel width, it then becomes what we see normally. Let me just remove that from the responsive mode, and so it becomes like this. So it's using a very simple flex mechanism for CSS, which I'm going to be demonstrating a little bit more in detail later on. We also have another page, if I hit add person, excuse me, which is simply just this form, right? But this is something that I built on the plane as we were going to Amsterdam. And it's just a simple page, right? So it's got first name, last name, age, and description here, and just a button that goes back to the list. And if I save it, then we get some sort of validation. So it makes sure that there is something in the first name, last name, age, and so forth, and then populates that. What I want to achieve today, if my code will allow it, is to actually save this stuff to the database. This is something that I haven't done yet. It's literally just this form, and this list here is just stuff that I've just put on the fly. So what I wanted to do here today is to talk about actually inserting these records into the database, how to do some good validation as well. So that's pretty much what we're going to be looking at here. And what I'm going to do is just spin over to the code, which is in, I've gone and renamed all of my OBS streams, scenes, which I shouldn't have done. So here we go, back into the code, or into the code for the first time. This code is looking quite small. Let me see if I can bring that up a little bit. Let's just, let's do that. So let me just bear with me a moment. Sorry if I'm moving forward and back a little bit. Let me just bring that into a little bit more of a reasonable UI here. So let me just exit full screen. And then I think I need to do restore active window, restore windows. There we go. There we go. That's looking a little bit easier to read. So if I go back into the tutorial, it's slightly bigger, which is all good. Let me just put that away. So what we need to do is have a look at how this code actually saves stuff to the database. So we have just an index and an insert. Index is the list of users, and it's just creating a new person model, which is just here. The person model is just basically a bunch of getters and setters. It's just a class, and then for every person we have that, and then on the insert here, we are basically inserting these bits here, which is off of the form, and then that's the error report. It's pretty basic, right? It's pretty straightforward. And this determines the class for whether there's an error or not. So we're putting in a class of error. I will just demonstrate quickly the CSS, which I must say is something I threw together relatively quickly. So we have just the body here and some bits for the buttons and stuff, and then we go into the containers. And it's really here where we start playing around with the flex stuff. So I have this thing called col, .col, and I set it by default to 100%, and a row which I set display block and a margin of 0. When we scroll down a little bit further to here, we are actually defining that the col is a flex basis with 100%. And we can actually define the number of boxes, number of columns for each one. So underscore 25, we have 4, underscore 55 is 8, and col is 1, 1 being that it's the whole thing. So the idea is that we can put flex boxes in flex boxes and flex boxes and so forth. That's basically the idea. If I went to the index here, we can see under here we've got an ID of container, which is the basic container that contains everything, and then we start playing with a row. So that's the first row, and we have col underscore 25, and that is the sidebar. That becomes the sidebar, and col 55, which is 8, I believe, is the main content. The main content here. The idea being is that when it gets to a point where it hits this. Well, it's written in mobile first. Okay, so underneath this is all anything above that minimum width. So here we've got where it says col 100%. This is why when it's on the mobile browser, it is full width, full 100%. And when we go anywhere bigger than 480, we start determining the actual cols. So col here is 1, and col is 4, and 55, and so forth. That splits everything up. That splits everything up. Sorry. Right. So what we're going to do is well, first of all, let's tidy this up a little bit, because what we're doing here is we're creating a load of person models. So we've got person 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and then we're setting that as the results. But what we should be doing really is be fetching this from the database. And I think if I did, let's just, sorry, let me just click on the terminal again. I think if I did mysql -u root -p and went into put in my super secret password and did use docker _in_motion, because that's the name of database, and then select all from, I think it's person, that's the name of the table. Yeah, we've got these bits in here. I was playing with this yesterday for just a tutorial on how to code well, about selecting and querying records through MySQLi. So there's some content in here, but we should really remove that lot, I suppose. So we can actually fetch stuff from here. So we don't need any of this stuff. This is all good. We don't need any of that. So I'm going to remove all of this like so, and we are fetching that back. So let's just save that. I haven't played with this in a while, so in a week or so. So let's just see what happens, shall we? So let's go back to the actual tutorial. So what I've done here is I've just simply removed all of this these models here. So we're just doing a db find all, and then if I went into the browser here and refresh this page, then we have that output, which is fantastic. It means that we've got that connection and that is working, which is perfect. I suppose what I could do is have a delete here. Maybe we should do that in this time. I don't know. I want to delete these kind of records because these are pointless. Let's focus though first on the adding of a person. I might do the delete later. So first name, last name, and age. It's got a bit of validation here, but the validation is very basic, right? So if I put in age of, let's say, a string, so test, and save that, I think that no, it needs to be a number. Okay, no, I did do that. That's fine. So test and test, save. It's still wanting a number. That's perfectly fine. Let me remove all of that and hit save. For some reason, these errors still persist, so that's a bug that I need to deal with. Okay, that's no problem. So let's go back into the code, which is that one there. Scroll all the way up to the top and see. Let's have a look at what's going on. So it is literally doing an if is set submit, and then it's checking for all of these things. Now this isn't the best way to do it at all. Not at all. We should be sanitizing and validating our inputs. We shouldn't just be assuming that these are correct, which is something that we're going to look at in a minute. Bear with me. Hold on. So let's do that. Let's sanitize these things. Let's filter these out. And we can do that using filter input, which is a PHP function that you can use to help to filter out inputs. There's also filter _var that we can use that filters out variables. Now this is pretty simple, right? But we've got two strings and what should be an integer. So what we can do do let's do a variable called is, and then valid, and then equal that to filter input, and the input type that we're doing is or the type is input, I believe. Input, is it input and then input post, because that's the type that we need. And also the variable name, which I believe is first or spelt correctly, obviously, first underscore name. And that is going to be filter, whoops. And we're going to filter this string. So we'll filter sanitize URL. Actually, I might just keep it to be default for now. That's perfectly fine. And what we can do is do let's just do a var dump of that and see what we've got. So is valid. I think this should come back as false if, let's just carve those back like that and do a die. So this should return false if the input isn't valid. So I'm just going to test that out. So let's go into here, refresh this page, and I'm not going to put anything in here, and just do save. So yeah, that's come back as null, which is fine. Although I would prefer it to be false, but hey, let's go back into here. So can we do filter sanitize, and there we go, string. Or it's not that really, is it? It's filter underscore validate, and it's Mac Boolean. No, it is, sorry, filter sanitize string. Beg your pardon. Like so. And what we need to do is if is valid, then it is valid. And what we could do, I suppose, is if that is empty, because null will cause emptiness and so will false, which is fine. Then we put in this part here, so we're making it a little bit more robust, which is great. And I suppose what we should do, instead of is valid, we should just do first name like that. Let's just run that again and see what happens. Let's just refresh and hit save on that. Go back to browse. Undefined is valid. Oops, what have I done there? That's oh yeah. Okay, let me just refresh that and then hit save. That's still coming back as null. Okay, that's fine. And if we did go back to here, then we can start playing with the other bits as well. So with first name, and then we have last name here. Please enter. Actually, I might as well just copy it from here because that's what we want. And that is last name. And the age is something slightly different because it's not actually going to be a string. It's actually an integer, so we have to handle that slightly differently. So what we need to do is grab that and do age. Whoops, sorry, age here is age, and we're going to do, instead of that, we're going to do filter sanitize in a number. Please enter age. We can remove all of that now, that's fine. What was that? Yeah, we can remove that too. Where did that go from? That went from, ooh, that's not right. I seem to have copied myself quite a bit. Let's remove that. Anyway, first name, last name, and then age. That seems good. Let's remove all of this, tidy this up a little bit, make it a little bit more better. We don't need that one either. Okay, so this is doing the validation, right? So this is doing validation, and what you could do, let's just set that to age, is just do so you can do is valid here. We're going to set that to be false by default because we should never assume that it's valid. And then we just simply do if count of the errors is greater than 0, then it's it's still false. Let's do is less than 1, so basically 0, and then is valid is true. So as long as there isn't anything in here, then we are able to save it to the database. Basically, essentially, that's what we're doing here. We don't need to have this find all stuff. We don't need that. We do need to make a database connection, so that's fine. And underneath here, we're going to do a save. And I believe if I was to go to, I think I put it in, where did I put it? Model repo, person repo. We have db find all, that's fine, but we should have somewhere, db insert person. So we're going to call that. So I'm just going to copy this in here. Go into, where was it, insert, excuse me, and then do just if is valid, and do a db insert, which I think is that correct? Yeah, we do have that, that's fine. And we're going to pass in, what do I need to pass in here? Do I need to, pass in the db instance, as well as, the person that we've got. So we're going to need to create a new a new person instance. I'm only going to connect to the database when I need to connect to the database, so I'm just going to do it here. There's no need to connect to the database otherwise. And I need to create a person, so let's do that now. So person is equal to new person, and we're just going to do person set. We have age, which is going to be age, and these are all fluent, so we should just be able to do this. So last name is last name, and first name, it's not really, this is get, that should be a set. Sorry, set first name, should be first name, and set the last name should also be last name, like last name. And what else have we got? Description. Have I actually done anything with the description? It's not necessarily required. It's optional, so we don't need to do the validation. However, we should do some sort of sanity checking on it. So I'm just going to put in description here. So what I'm going to do is just if isn't empty. Empty, if isn't empty of, and I think I've called it post, I believe it's post, I think it's just description. It should be. Yeah, description. Fine. Okay. If isn't empty post description, and then we do the filter. So we do, we're going to just set description up here to be blank. In fact, what we could do, I guess, because it's always going to be null, is we don't actually need any of this stuff. We can just do description is equal to filter the input. passing in input post again. The name is description. That's the variable name, and we're going to sanitize just using default for this one. That's perfectly fine. So there we go. We hit description. I'll do some tests in a minute. So description will be null if that that doesn't work. So description here. Let's just do, before we save it into the database, let's just do a var dump of person just to see what we've got. And I'm just going to kill that like this. Let me do a refresh of this one. Let me bring that back into view. We're just going to, first of all, we're going to do it blank. That shouldn't even get to that point, which is fine. And then what we're going to do is just do Peter Fisher, and I'm just going to put in 33, and this is a test, and save that. We should, ooh, that didn't work. That's still got errors. Let me take a look and see what's happened. So we should have landed in this thing here, although it's still saying that we have errors, which is weird. Let's have a look to see what's going on here. Action is insert, method is post. So it should be refreshing this page, and we should be landing here. The errors here should be if is set errors last name. So the errors should have been blanked out, which they are. And it's so these for some reason are being populated still, which is peculiar. Let me just take a look. Let's do a var dump here of, I should really be doing this in a debugger to be honest, of what we've got in post. I don't think I've got my debugger set up for this yet. So that's coming back obviously as empty. That's perfectly fine. And let's just do it here. Let's do it there. And then hit save. So we have description and submit. That's fine. Do test. Test 2. Test, oh, that should be an age 2. Test 3. And hit save. Okay, I see. So some of these aren't actually being pulled back. Okay, that's fine. So we don't have first name, we don't have last name, but we do have the description, which is very weird. Okay, let me take a look. So go back into here. What's happening is that the first name and the last name, can you see spelling mistakes? This is what happens when you work on a plane at 30,000 miles up, or feet up, or however much I was, because the names aren't correct. I'm surprised my IDE didn't pick that up, or it probably did and I just ignored it. So now we should be able to, let's go back into the browser, we should be able to pick those things up. Let's just refresh that, bring that back to normal. Let's do test 1, test 2, and the age of 3, and the test 3 on here. Hit save, and there we go. That's looking better. I thought I did all this when I was traveling, but perhaps I didn't. So you'll have to forgive me for that. Let's go back into here. We should now be able to remove this and then take up this this thing here. So that's looking relatively okay. Let's save that and see if we can get this person outputted. So let's hit the browser, go back into you, and then just hit save. And we have the person object. ID is set to null because we haven't got the ID yet because it hasn't been inserted. I will talk about that in a minute. But the first name and last names and the description and the age seems to be working okay. So that's all well and good. I'm just going to grab a drink of water. Okay. And then go back into here. So let's remove that. Now we're going to do a db insert. So that's going to go into that file, into this function, db insert, passing in the instance of the MySQLi object as well as the person model that we've just created. It's going to run this. It's going to do an insert into person, all of these things, add that into the query, and then what it's going to do is set the ID of the person to the inserted ID off of the back of this, and if we can't do it, then it's going to throw an exception. Then it's just going to return the person. So fine. Hopefully that'll work. So let's save all of that. Go back into the browser. Come out of that. I'm going to start from scratch, and I'm just going to do Peter Fisher. Age is 33. Description. I'm just going to do this is a live coding test. It's live coding, so I spell it wrong. And then hit save. Okay, so that's saved. It hasn't done anything, like it hasn't returned anything yet because I haven't set it to. But if I did view list, then we should now see that we have that record that's been inserted into the database. So, woohoo! What I'm going to do every time a user gets added to the database through this add person screen, what we need to do is refresh the list. So we're going to go back to the list. I don't want them to just keep inserting people. I want them to go back to the screen to actually see what has changed. So we need to do a header redirect. Oh boy. Oh, I'm so sorry. So we need to do a header redirect, and I've talked about this before in the How to Code Well channel. It's literally as you're doing, calling header. You're putting in a location, and that location is just the where you want to go. But then you must make sure that you kill the script. You either do a die or an exit, one of those language constructs, in order to stop anything else from firing. So that's what we're going to do now. So let's just go into the browser again. Actually, not the browser, sorry, the old tutorial. Let's go into the insert, and it's at this point, if it is valid, we need to do this. What we should do is ensure that what has been returned is a person. If I went to that function here, we can see that what is returned is a person. It could throw an exception. So we need to do person is equal to that. Just in case this fails, we shouldn't ever be assuming that what works and what doesn't. So if person, we're just going to check if that person is an instance of person, like that. If instance is person, then we know that we've actually, we've added something to it. So if is person, then we do a header, and this is the header redirect. So the header redirect is as simple as doing just a location, and we specify the location that we want to return to. In this case, it's just going to be index.php. But we must make sure that we do kill the script to ensure that the script doesn't continue being processed. So we do that. So let's save this. That's fine. Let's go back into the browser and try that out, shall we? So let's just refresh this page and go into I'm just going to put in let's do coding test 33 again, and just blah. Let's save that. Now that should refresh and go straight to this list page, and so we have this list here. It's starting to make shape. Let's start actually making this a little bit more user friendly, because if I went to add person and then hit save, we have these errors. So we have a way of informing the user that there is a problem. Likewise, we should have a way of informing the user that a record has been saved. If they just hit add person and then insert a person and then come back here, they would have to see that a person has actually been added, and this list could get quite long. So what we would like to do, or what I would like to do, is actually have something up here that just says, hey, something's been added. So that we're going to play around with the session a little bit. So okay, let's dive back into the code, which is in here. Gosh. Okay. So at this point here, we're doing a header redirect. What we need to do is play around with the session. Now we can do underscore session, and we can do this. So we can do alert is equal to, and we can just do message saved like so. And we can also do another session here, and we can do just alert underscore status. This can be just success. Now what we need to do is start the session and end the session and so forth. So right at the top here, I'm going to do session start. Because that starts the session, and then that gets added to the session. So I suppose what we could do is actually put this into the connection string. Let me just double check. Let's just see that. Bear with me a small piece. What we need to ensure, of course, is that the session gets initialized and actually gets saved to the page. So when we're running the session, we need to make sure that it continues, it follows through to the next thing. And we're certainly not going to be using global variables at all, because that's just a massive no-no. What we do is we start the session, we get the session, and we set a session. It's like basically an array, really, isn't it? And we set the value to that, and then on the next page we start the session and we pull the value off of that, right? Excuse me, sorry. So let me go back to the code, the tutorial. So here we're starting the session. That's perfectly fine. Down here we're adding stuff to the session, and then we're closing this. And we've got an alert here, which is message saved, and an alert status, which is just success. I suppose you could have another alert status, which is error, and so forth. So now in index, what we can do is at the top here, we have session underscore start, because we're starting that out. And what I'm going to do is just simply do a var dump of the session. So we're just going to print out session like so, and let's just do a die, because what we're going to do is just make sure that we've got that available to us. So what we can do is go back into the browser, click on there, do test, and then like 33 and test, save that, and we have that session. That is the output of that. So we have the alert message saved, and the alert status, which is success, which means now that we can actually put in some fancy alert mechanism thing. I make it sound really complicated. It is literally just a box which is shown if we have a session which is green with that message. Fine. So that's what we're going to do now. Let's go back into the tutorial again. So that's fine. And it's going to be somewhere around this main content, so about here, I guess. I'm just going to double check what the what I've got running off of the back of here, because we've got this stuff here, errors. I basically want to use this, so alert box and then alert, and then that's going to be either success or an error. So let's just copy that. like so. Go into index and just I've got one eye on the stream here just to ensure that I'm on the right page. And so where am I? I'm in index. That's fine. So it's going to be around here. So it's probably going to be above that. Let's just put that in here. And what we're looking for is, of course, session, and the session up there. So let's just remove that. We don't need that anymore. Down here, so we've got, let's do status is equal to underscore session, and I called it alert underscore status. Did I call it alert underscore message for the actual message? Let's have a look. Scroll up. No, I'm going to do it alert underscore message like that. It just, you're making it a little bit more in a namespace. So that's the message, that's the status. And then back into here, we have alert status. So we have that as well as the message, which is session underscore alert underscore message, like so. And I guess what we should do is, if isn't empty, we should do message, or let's do status first. Status and isn't empty message, like so. So that's fine. Remove that. Oops. There we go. So if the status isn't empty, if the message isn't empty, then there's something to show. And what we can do here is concat that to be the string. So this is going to be I think that's going to be status. So we're going to have to jump back into PHP. Whoops, sorry. Echo status, like so. Because the status is going to be either, well, it's success, that's fine. And then we've got this H3, so we can remove all that. We don't need any of that stuff. And the message is just going to be put in here. PHP echo, and then this, whoops, and then save that. So we've got an alert box and then an alert, and that's going to be alert underscore and success, or sorry, not underscore, hyphen and then success. That's looking good to me. What we got to do is in main.css, where we have alert, something like this, we have alert box. We really should play around with that a little bit. So it's an error.alert box. That should be changed slightly, because we're going to change the color. I want the color to be green. So in index here, we're doing alert box and then just alert. So alert box. Alert box needs to not have red. What I suppose I could do is just do alert, and it's just hyphen error, which is going to have that. And then, so that's fine. And then alert underscore success, we're going to have a different color here. We're just going to have, I think we can just do green. So that's the border. That's fine. And then the background color is just a light green. And I'm also going to change the color of that to be black. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Okay, so let's just double check my logic here. So we've got the alert message and alert status. This is being saved. In the index, we have we're setting those to these variables here, and then we're saying if it is an empty status, and if it is an empty message, and then we're doing that. And we're doing alert and then that status. So let's see what happens. This is probably all going to fall apart now, but let's just double check. Oh, excuse me, sorry. My cold is infuriating. So I'm going to just refresh this and do, well, let's just first of all view the list. Okay, so we have an undefined index alert message on line 41. So I suppose I best check that first. Alert message. Oh yes, it's because I'm trying to punch this through, and I need to actually check that actually exists. So if is set, do alert message. I suppose what I could do is do this from an array walk, because there's, I'm going to have to duplicate myself a little bit here. But I suppose what I could do is put this in a function. I might do that later, just to make it a little bit more, refactor this a little bit. So let's just set that to be status. Whoops, but fat fingers on the magic mouse. We're going to just set that to be blank as well as message. Going to set that to be blank too. And we're just going to set these. I guess what I could do is, just to make this a little bit tidier, I don't like this. It's just making the code look awful. Let's just use these as ternary operators, because, we can. So instead of stat, we can do is set, and we're going to put that in here, like so. Alert status, and we're just going to equal that to alert status if it is set. Else, we're just going to have that as just blank. There we go. So just do it on one line. Might as well make it a little bit more easier to handle. There's no need to make a mountain out of a molehill here. So that's cool. And then so we're just checking if it is, if these things are empty and so forth. So let's save that and go back into the browser. Hopefully that has fixed that that thing. That's fine. Okay, so I suppose I should start adding some bits and pieces here. So let's just go to add and just go to test, first name, test, last name, 33, test again, and hit save. And there we go, message saved. Boom. Oh, I am really sorry. I am really sorry. I sound like I must sound like some sort of stupid cartoon character who smokes 50 a day. This is man flu. Right. So that looks awful. It looks like some sort of neon. I don't know, some sort of neon club thing going on here, like someone's throwing up a glow stick. So that needs to change. It's looking a little bit garish. I might play with the look and feel later. Also, there is a problem here with the padding. Can you see it's slightly, that needs to be up to up. In fact, that's going to really annoy me. So let's just have a look. So alert here has a padding at the top. I don't know if you can see this on this on here, and it's got a margin top of 10, which is the issue. So that's making it a little bit better. So I guess we can play with that a little bit. That's alert box main.css line 130. Blimey, 130 lines of CSS. That's nuts. So let's just play with that whilst I'm here. So let's go to the tutorial. It's alert box, which is the thing that is causing the pain. Somewhere alert box. I said 130, didn't I? Somewhere down here. Why do I not can keep all these together? I should really keep all of these, you know, as one. So this is the problem here. Main margin top is 10. There might be an issue with that with the actual with the error screen, because the error is doing that too. So when I, for example, if I go into the browser and hit add, and then let's just remove that, we don't need that here, hit save, then that has a margin of 10. So I think what I need to do is just change the way this works for the error and the, because if I did margin top, took that off, that looks awful. So we need to keep that in. So I think if it is alert error, then it has a margin top, and if it is alert success, then it doesn't. Although that just seems really, really weird. But we'll do that because that's a quick fix. So tutorial, and we've got alert error here. That is going to have the margin top, and alert success, that won't. Like so. So let's try that out. So let's go back to the old browser. We're going to refresh this. Yes, I would like to send it, and yeah, that looks fine. Let's hit, let's remove that, don't need that here. Just do foo, oops, sorry, foo, I can't, why am I not, why is that set as a, odd, foo, bar, 33, test, save. And there we go, that's looking a little, that's in line now, which has pleased my OCD a little bit. So that's good. Notice this is getting really sort of, long here. What I want to do is just add a delete mechanism. What is the time? How long have I gone for? Have I got enough time to do this? Yes, I do. So let's do that. Let's add a delete mechanism. Let's delete some of these things. So let's do clicking on the buttons, all the buttons, tutorial. Let's go back into index.php. That's what we need. And if we scroll up to wherever the TDs are set, which is here, THs, we can do another TH. God, if I spelt correctly, it would be a miracle. TH, and we're just going to do something like action, maybe, I don't know. And then here we're going to have a delete button. So we're going to do a delete button here, and we're just going to do an href, and this is going to go to let's just put it back to index.php. We might as well. I mean, there doesn't need to do anything else. So let's just go index.php, and then let's just do delete, like so. Let's save that. So we should have now a delete button. Yeah. On all of these things. Can you see all of these things? And if I hit delete, it's just going to refresh this page. What we should do, obviously, is remove that session. So it's not actually still kept. I should have done that. Let's do that now before I go on. I do apologize. I'm jumping around a little bit. So where is that? That is in here. So here we can do. Oops. Session, and we're just going to set alert message to be blank, as well as the session alert status as well. In fact, instead of just setting them to blank, let's just unset them. we might as well. It's going to have the same effect. It's just we're going to just clear up the variables a little bit, which is always good. So let's unset these things and save. Whoops. Okay, so that's cool. So now we'll only have this message once. I suppose you could call that a flash message because it's just going to flash when, once and then disappear again. Oh yeah, I did some fancy little thing here with plurals. So if the number's greater than 1, then we put an S on the end. Yeah, wow. So anyway, let's deal with this. Let's hit that save. Go back into the browser just to make sure that that is still running. And that's fine. Notice that the message has now just disappeared, which is cool. So what we need to do is pass this in as like a GET request, right? So we need to put in like question mark and then the ID and then look for that in the post variable and then run a delete function. So I'm going to need a delete function for DB. I'm going to need the and then put in this post variable and then do some sort of validation on that. I think that's good. So let's do that. Let's go back into the tutorial and put in a question mark because that's going to denote that we are doing a GET request, and the variables of the GET, well, every request is a GET request, but the variables that we're going to put to include with the GET request start with question mark. So question mark, and we're going to do ID, and we're going to equal that to the ID of the record, and in this case it is literally just going to be PHP echo, and because we have this person model here that we're using, we can just do get ID like that. Let's just close PHP and save that. So now every button here, let's just refresh, go into here, every button now has a ID. So if I was to delete that one, for example, that will come up with an ID. If I go into the web inspector again, it might be a little bit small on here to show you, but on the TD we have ID of 2, and then on the next one we should have a TD of 3, and so forth. So it's the ID. So that's the unique identifier for each record. Now there is an argument, obviously, to say that you shouldn't be exposing the IDs because these are the unique identifiers. So if someone wanted to delete, say, an ID of 1,000, then they could just manipulate that. That's fine. I do accept that. We probably shouldn't be doing this. We should be using something like a GUID or some sort of UUID thing. But to be honest, that is just security over obscurity, in my opinion. This is just a very simple app, and we're just going to keep it as simple as possible. So we're going to use IDs. So if you don't like it, then ha. So let's do that now. Let's add in some bits and pieces to delete. So let's go back into the browser, or the terminal, I should say. Not terminal, the actual code. And we're going back to the index page, so we're actually going back to this page here, which is fine. And we're going to make a check for whether or not we actually have that ID. So, excuse me. So the GET requests, the parameters of a GET request come in like this. So var dump. I'll just show you var dump, and then we'll just kill this, and we're going to do underscore or $ underscore and then get. So that's how they come through, and it's an associative array, right, where the value is the name of the variable is the index, and then the value is its value. But what I'll do is I'll just demonstrate that. So let's just go into the browser, and let's just hit delete on one of these things. So that was ID of 1. This is going to be ID of 3, I believe. And if I went back to here, that would be ID of 8. Okay, so now we have that. We should be able to identify the record with that get variable and then delete it. But obviously we need to double check that variable too, because it could be someone could be maliciously putting in a whole bunch of stuff. So we need to ensure that it's not a string; it's an integer. So let's do. We need to do a filter var again. So we're just going to put in here delete record, and I'm going to do that after this. So it needs to be after the connection of the database. After the connection of the database, but before the actual fetch of the results, because we're deleting it. So if we were to fetch the results and then delete it, then that record won't be your display won't change. So we need to get the ID. So we're just going to set a variable called ID, and we could just do this, right? We could just do get ID, but that is such a bad thing, right? Because you are assuming that the ID is correct. You're assuming that is perfectly fine. We don't want to do that. That's bad. No. So filter underscore input, and in this case, it's just going to be input get, and the name is ID, and we're going to do a filter sanitize number. That's cool. And what we can do here is var underscore dump again, just to show you what is being returned, and let's just die like that, and go back into the browser. Let's just load that up. Yeah, okay, so that's null. But if I was to change that to be something like delete, sorry, what am I doing? Nope, that's not good. Go back into to here. Of course, we're killing that. So basically, what I'm saying is that will be null, or that will be an ID if it is numeric. If it is an ID. So from there, what we need to do is then, if ID, we then go ahead and do something. We actually go and delete it. So I don't think we have a delete feature yet in the personal repo. Let's have a look. So we've got insert, we've got find all, and that is it. So we need to create a function, which is what I'm going to do now. I'm just, for ease, I'm just going to copy one of these things. So let's just copy the the find all like that. And we're just going to do db delete. So that's fine. We're not going to have any data. We're going to delete by an ID. And we're just going to have delete, delete, if I can spell it, delete from, we don't do all, we do delete from person. Now, if you don't have an ID, it's going to delete everything. Bad idea. Very, very, very bad idea. We can do that where, and then ID is equal to, ID, like that. And then we do all of that. That does a query, that's fine. And if results, so that means if, that's going to return a Boolean, so true if it worked, false if it didn't. So if result, and then what we can do is just, we're just going to return a result, I think. That's probably the best thing to do. So that now deletes a person record. Now, one thing I haven't done in any of these ID, let me just, where ID is equal to, that's coming up as, it's missing the PHP block. One thing I haven't done in any of this is actually discuss about the sanitization of the database. We filtered out and we've sanitized the actual variable values, right, from PHP. But what we haven't done is, done anything for sanitizing it, escaping it to go into the database. And one thing we could do, sorry, I'm talking whilst I'm typing, so this is just going to be an int. One thing we could do is use parameterized queries. like a PDO type thing. I'm not going to play around with that too much now, but do note that this isn't like a production ready thing. We should be parameterizing our queries a little bit more. We should be putting in some better robust things because of SQL injection and so forth. So that is something that I would just like to say. Please don't go, oh, this is a good way of creating a form. This is just me throwing some things together for an example. Right, so let's do an insert. And that works fine. And then on the index here, we're doing if ID, and then we can do db, db person, or db, what did I call it? db delete. Oh, that's pretty awful, isn't it? It should be db person delete. Let me set that. db connect, not that one, sorry, in person repo, should be db person delete to make it consistent with all of those. That's cool. So copy, save, back into here, and then just do db person delete down like that. So we take an instance of the MySQLi object as well as the ID that we wish to delete, and we're returning the result. So result like that, and we can do if result. So if result like that, and we can actually start updating. So we could create ourselves. What am I looking for? What am I looking for up here? Yeah, some sessions up like that. So we could do this. So we could do if result, then we do session. Because the session has already started, that's fine. So we do session alert message, which is record has been deleted, and this is also a success. Lowercase, like that. Save. Okay, let's try that out. So let's go back to the browser, and let's just load that up. That should be, whoa, no, there we go. Let's go back to the view list. Now let's hit, let's delete the foobar, and there we go. Foobar has been deleted. Let's delete that one, delete that one, and 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 that one. There we go. So there's a little delete mechanism. But like I said, we need to ensure that what we're passing through is actually correct. I could hack this up, right? So I could do, where am I? On the index here. Instead of passing in the ID, I could just simply, let me just demonstrate. Let's just change that. Instead of this, change that to be a string, right? So foo bar, right? So that's not an ID. That's not anything that's going to do. And you could also hack this up and put in some SQL injection to actually destroy everything. Bobby drop tables. Let's just validate that doesn't go through. What we need to do is actually put in some sort of response, some error response. So if result, if ID, and then we can do else. Well, we'll leave it like that actually, because if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? Sorry, I was working on the terminal here. What I should have said is what I've done is I've changed that to be foobar. Sorry, I had the browser on. So that was originally, let me just go back to here. Yeah, so originally this was just like that, right? But we need to ensure that just stupid things like foobar doesn't get through, and also any kind of crazy SQL injection that will blow up the table. So save that. And what I'm going to do in the browser here is just refresh this page and then hit delete. And I'll just double check actually That is correct. Let's just go into the web inspector. Yes, so ID is now foobar. I don't know if you can see that. ID is foobar. So let's hit delete, see what happens. Nothing really should happen at all. Yep. So that didn't get through because it's not an ID. It's not an integer. It's not an ID. And that didn't get through because of this check. Let me go back to the actual tutorial. This sanity, this filter input, we're inputting the get, we're ensuring that the ID is correct, and we're doing a sanitize, so we're cleaning that out. And then we do an if ID, and there you go. So that looks pretty good, but the actual look and feel of it, as you can probably tell, I'm a bit of a stickler for consistency. I don't like that. That is not that is not nice. That is not nice. I've got these nice little buttons here, and that isn't a button. That's a link. So we're going to change that now. So let's go back into the old tutorial where we've got these buttons, these links. Sorry, I want to I'm going to put that back to that. I want to give that a class, and what I'm going to do is just to make this a little bit more readable. Do that. We're going to give it a class, and we've got BTN here. I don't know what this is going to look like, so you're going to have to just bear with me a minute. I don't know what this is going to do, but the BTN classes are what's used on these buttons. So let's just have a look, a go, and have a look. So we're going to refresh, and yeah, all right, that doesn't look too bad, although it's very like blue. So maybe it needs to have a different look. Maybe it needs to have like a different type of thing. Maybe it needs to be grey. What do you guys think? It needs to be sort of a different color, I think, to make it less like these buttons. I know consistency is good, but I think I think these buttons need to be slightly different. So I'm going to just change that. Let's go back into the browser. Sorry, not the browser. The tutorial here, the code, and we're going to do main CSS, and we're going to look for the word BTN, and we're going to just play around with that a little bit. So BTN, and I'm just going to put BTN delete, and the background color. We're going to have, color is, let's try that one. And the color itself is going to be, let's do BB. I like BB. BB's cool. BBB. Okay, let's go back into the browser, refresh, and let's see what disasters that's had. Obviously, obviously, I need to apologies. Actually, put that in as a class that we're using. Let's copy that. There we go. Go into the where am I? Index class is BTN as well as BTN hyphen delete. Save into the browser, refresh, and it looks terrible. It looks very, very bad. Let's try another color. So instead of, let's flip this, put that as that, and set that as that one. Maybe that's probably better. Or let's do that as 999. 999 is quite good. Okay, go back to the browser then, refresh. It's looking a little bit more better. Maybe they should be red because there's a delete. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I should have the text as red. I'm going to have the text actually as black, I think. So let's go back to the tutorial, go back into here, change the color of that to be 000. Okay, I'll leave it like that, I think. Um, now, one thing I need to do, let's just add in a person so we can, as we can do it now, so we can do temp and test and 33 with the description of test. One thing I want to do is when you hit delete, it's going straight to deleting it, right? It's not actually saying, do you want to delete this? And, it should, in my opinion, you should have some sort of visual response that just says, look, are you really sure you want to delete this thing? So that's where JavaScript comes in, right? So you have a JavaScript alert that says, like a confirm, which I guess is something that we can throw in. So let's go back into here. Go into the, where is it? The index. So this is btn delete. So we can do some JavaScript to, so when that gets clicked, we can do an on click. We can prevent the browser from redirecting. We can display a confirm button, and then on click we then return true. So I guess what we could do is have either an on click event running on here, or we could have this just running, in JavaScript. I think the simplest thing is to have an on click event, and the on click event will just be delete record. So that's the method name. That's the method name. There we go, delete record. And then right at the top here, so right in the head, we can do some sort of script. So script type, and we're going to equal that to just be text slash JavaScript. There we go. And we're going to have a function called delete record, and that is the thing that's going to cause the confirm. And there is a I think there is a confirm. There is a confirm here. So you could do it as an alert. You could do it as an alert and capture that and have a button for that. But there is a confirm here. So are you sure you want to delete this record, question mark, like that. And there we go. I'm just going to run that and just as a test. So I think that does that return? I think that returns true. Let me just double check something a minute. Let me just have a gander. JavaScript confirm. Window.confirm. It returns a boolean, which is fine. So indicating OK or cancelled was clicked. So you get two buttons off of this. This is great. So true or false. So true when you click OK, false when there is a cancel. So you can deal with that. That's perfectly fine. So let's try let's try that. Let's go back into the tutorial. So we can set that as var. Let's do, I don't know, val, maybe, I don't know. And then if val, so that is if it's true, then that's fine. Else it's not. So else like that. So when it's true, I suppose we would just return true, and then when it's false, we literally just return false. And if this works, what I'll do is just tidy this up because this code is looking a little bit awful. So var val is equal like that. Okay, so that will do an on click, and then on click. Where am I going here? So that will do an on click, go into delete record. We should get that confirmation message that I've put here, and then depending on whether or not it's true or false, it will return true or return false. So let's go back into the browser and we're going to just refresh the. Did that refresh? I don't know. Let's just go back to here. Okay. Right. So I'm just going to add in a temp person, TMP test 33, and then test save. Fine. And then hit delete. And no, that didn't come up. That should have displayed. Let me just double check that was on delete. So yeah, it is running delete record. Maybe I need to actually run that as put some parentheses in there. I think I do, because that's just equaling that to a string. I should have known that. Apologies. So that should actually call come here, an actual function like that. And I think that should be okay. I mean, I suppose what we could do is actually have this is as a JavaScript thing, so it's like as a href. But you know, I'm not too happy with that, to be honest. I don't actually like doing those kind of things. But let's put in another test account. And hit save, and then hit delete. There we go. So are you sure you want to delete this record? If I was to click cancel, it has deleted. That's not what I wanted to happen. I wanted to, when you hit temp, when you put in, when you hit OK, I want you to delete it. But so it's not conforming to that confirm. Okay, so what we need to do is just hack about with that and actually return that. So I guess what we could do is return whatever that is. Maybe, okay, let's yeah, let's try that. So instead of instead of that, we could just do return on, we could just return that. Okay, because that will be returning, whoops, up here, true or false. I suppose that's probably why it didn't work, right? Because there was nothing actually being returned here, which means that I could literally just return that if it works. Let's just save this and check that out. So let's put in temp, test 33, test again, hit save, and then delete, hit cancel, and there we go. See, that worked. Hit delete, hit OK, and that was deleted. Fantastic. Let's refactor this hideous code. So go into that, and literally what I can do is just return this. So we're just going to return that like so. Just return that. Are you sure you want to delete this record? And that will be a yes or no. If it's yes, then that returns true. If it's no, then that returns false, which means that function returns either true or false, which means that this onClick will return either true or false. If it returns false, then we prevent this action from happening. If we return true, then we continue with that action. The action being putting in the ID here, and so forth. So let's just try that again. Let's hit save, go back into the browser, and I'm just going to add a new person. So test 33, test, and then hit save. So that's that, and then hit test, hit delete. Hang on a minute, what's going on here? Maybe I needed to have that confirm. Interesting. Maybe I needed to have that to actually return. Maybe that isn't returning. Oh God, JavaScript. Why can't you just, be normal? So let's assign that to be a variable value. I'm intrigued. What is this actually being, let's just do a console.log and see console.log. What is val? Maybe that sucks. Let's hit that again. Let's do add person and then hit test. I do apologize for anyone who's watching and thinking, what on earth is he doing? Going backwards and forwards. But I'm intrigued. I want to know what that actually comes back as a return type. Show web inspector, hit the console, which is that one there. Let's hit delete. So I'm just going to hit cancel, and that returns as false. And then hit delete, and then hit OK. Huh. Okay. Odd. All right, we'll just leave that in. We'll just leave that in. That's fine. What I need to do, I will tidy that up because it does look pretty shocking. I just want to double check something. We've been going for about an hour and 41. That's fine. I do have a lot of other bits and pieces that I need to crack on with later, especially around this Docker stuff. So, so I think I'm going to wrap it up soon. But we do value, and then that's fine. So we're just going to leave it like that for now. And then really that kind of, I think, let's go back to the browser. I think that is pretty much looking, I mean, that looks awful, that green. That needs to be a different color, a little bit less in your face, I think. I'm still not overly happy about these buttons. But, it's a very simple app. It's a very simple app. I'm one of these people where when you've got design, it's very tricky to stop. Actually, side note, I was heavily into multimedia. I did a degree in multimedia and e-commerce, and which was both Java and 3D animation. I got a lot of my great grades through multimedia by designing things. Actually, one of the modules we had was to create a computer game, and I created the actual graphic of a Game Boy that the game went into, and so I got a lot of good marks from the graphic type of stuff. However, I've turned into a programmer because I find it very tricky to stop designing. I find it very subjective. So I, with designing a system, designing an application, designing a program, designing a class diagram, designing how classes stack together, how they interact with each other, making it extensible, and all of that, all the isables, so scalable, extensible, all of that stuff, and performant is more appealing to me now than actually designing something that looks nice. Because, in my opinion, if something looks nice but performs terribly, then that is a big issue. So I'm more of a function guy rather than a form guy. But anyway, this is just a very simple thing. So we can add a user. And save that. That needs to be a number. So there is some basic validation here, and then we can delete as well. So that pretty much is what I want this to do. The Docker in Motion course is a course which this website will be using in the later modules, and this will be the database will be in a container, and the website will be in another container, and I'll be demonstrating how to link those containers together. But before we do any of that, we're going to go through how to create Docker images, and even before that, we're going to talk about the differences between containers and virtualization and so forth. So it is a very in-depth course. Um, and Manning, it's a course by Manning Publications. Manning do a lot of discounts. There was one last week which seen this as 50% off. When these do come through, I'll certainly let people know on Twitter and Facebook and so forth. So if you haven't done so already, please do follow me on the Facebooks, on the Twitters, on the Instagrams, as well as the How to Code Well channel. But thanks ever so much for watching. I do apologize about my cold. It's I'm persevering. It's a man flu, and I'm not going to let it defeat me. But thanks ever so much for watching, guys. I will see you again next stream, which is next week, next Saturday, probably around the same time, 10 a.m. Or 10:30 a.m. GMT. But thanks ever so much. I think I'm going to grab some cups of teas and soothe my throat. Thanks ever so much for watching, guys. See you again next time. Happy coding. Bye bye.